I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, this is the BYD Dolphin, and it's the electric car that could absolutely be a juggernaut for cheap EVs here in Australia. Likely to be called the BYD Atto 2 when it launches in Australia in December 2022. The Dolphin or Atto 2, the target for the price is 35,000 Australian dollars, or somewhere between 30 and 35,000 Australian dollars, at least for an entry-level model, and that'd be a lot cheaper than the cheapest EV on the market here right now. Now, I'm speaking to you in March 2022, so there's still 9 months before we're going to see a Dolphin on the road. But in July, BYD will be launching the Atto 3, which I've already got a walk around on the Chasing Cars channel for you to watch. That vehicle costs about 45 grand drive away. So what we're looking at here in the Atto 2 is a vehicle that's going to be about $10,000 cheaper and broadly comparable to the cost of something like a Volkswagen Golf or a high-spec Toyota Corolla. So as you can see, electric cars are getting cheaper very, very quickly. And in today's video, I'm going to take you around the BYD Dolphin or BYD Atto 2. We're going to talk about how much range this vehicle has, the battery size, the charging speed, the power and torque of the front electric motor. It's a single motor vehicle, and we'll have a look inside the Dolphin as well because it's got a pretty cool interior, this cute little car. Now, this one is finished in like a kind of metallic pink or violet, but that's not the only color that's going to be offered on the car. Similarly, the interior is violet as well. Really interesting. A bit like that Atto 3 we looked at the other day, which had a blue, ocean blue and white and red interior. BYD are really not going for the boring beige, bland, black, conservative interiors that we usually see here in Australia. They want to do something a bit different, and you can let me know your thoughts on that down below the video. So next thing we'll talk about are the basics of the powertrain and the battery and the charging of the Atto 2, and then we'll jump inside and have a look at that cabin. But before we get started, hit subscribe down below. Now, how much power and torque does the Atto 2 have? How big's the battery, and how far can you drive it between charges? Well, final specs for Australia are definitely still up in the air, but I can tell you what we know about the Chinese market BYD Dolphin, because that's what's sitting right here. This is a production version from China, sitting in the showroom here in Sydney, Australia. So you can get a big battery or a small battery, a bit like the Atto 3 that's already up on the channel. And in the Atto 2 or in the Dolphin, those batteries measure in at 30 kilowatt hours and 45 kilowatt hours. So a relatively small battery. So there's a fair bit of space going on there beneath this vehicle because it sits on the same 2.7 meter long wheelbase as the Atto 3, but the whole vehicle is only 4 meters long. So it's really all wheelbase, this car. It's absolutely fascinating. Now, big battery, 45 kilowatt hours, that would be my pick for what's going to come to Australia because it's going to give a range, WLTP, estimate of 300 kilometers. So the same as something like a Lexus UX 300e, which costs more than double what this vehicle costs, or something like a Nissan Leaf as well, Hyundai Ioniq Electric, all those sorts of entry-level EVs that have traditionally cost 50,000 bucks. This thing is planning to undercut all of them, but still offer about 300 kilometers of range to a charge. Now with the small battery, the 30 kilowatt hour battery in China, that'll get you about 225 kilometers WLTP estimate to a charge. So around the same as a Mazda MX-30 or a Mini Cooper SE, but we regard them as pretty short range here in Australia. So if I was a betting man, I would say 45 kilowatt hours for the Atto 2 or the BYD Dolphin. Now, just like the Atto 3, this sits on what BYD calls the 3.0 platform, and that's largely based around a front motor, a single front motor. We don't know anything about a dual motor all-wheel drive for any of their cars, but I'm sure it's on the table. Single motor here at the front, which you can actually see underneath this small bonnet, and you can get that in two power outputs in China. You can either get it in 70 kilowatts and 180 newton meters, so kind of like a base model Volkswagen Polo, or you can get it in a higher output of 130 kilowatts and 290 newton meters, which is basically a Ford Fiesta ST. So there you go. Almost like a warm hatch here in the BYD Atto 2. Given that the Atto 3, which is a much larger vehicle, weighs 1,600 kilos, this thing could come in at like 1,300, 1,400 kilos maybe, which is almost light. Now, you've probably spotted the charging door on this mauve or violet colored BYD Dolphin. That opens up like so, and it reveals kind of like a China spec charging port because this car is from China. but also a Type 2 socket. Now, charging speeds are a little slow for the BYD Dolphin. The small battery only has a 40 kilowatt DC charging speed, but if you go for the big battery that I think is more likely to come to Australia, it's 60 kilowatts. So not the slowest we've tested. Something like a Mini Cooper SE can only be charged at 50 kilowatts, for instance. So this is better than that. But BYD tell us it's all about thermal management. They say that the Blade battery that's used by this car can do 1 million kilometers with minimal degradation. And the most important thing to prevent battery degradation is massive variances in heat. And so one reason why no Blade battery can charge at more than 80 kilowatt DC is to keep the heat low. But of course, it has a massive impact in terms of charging speed. Or does it? Because the question is, how big is the battery that's being charged? And in this vehicle, the battery is so small that getting to 80% only takes half an hour on the small battery. 80% takes a little bit longer than that on the big battery. So I guess it's horses for courses, swings and roundabouts. You can let me know down below this video how fast you think an EV needs to charge or how much range you're looking for. Now we'll put away our little charge port door and covers just like that, just like a fuel filler door, and we can then walk down the side of the BYD Dolphin. Super long wheelbase, reminds me quite a lot of a Cupra Born, very similar wheelbase to a Cupra Born or a Volkswagen ID3, and we can see here the tyres fitted to this vehicle are 205/50 R17. They're a Chaoyang tyre from China. But EV Direct here in Australia, they're hoping to fit Continental tyres to the vehicles in Australian spec. Now, moving around the back, we've got this really cool interlinked LED light strip. Now, this is not sponsored content. I don't work for BYD. You know me, I dole out plenty of criticism on this channel, and we haven't done a road test of the vehicle yet. That's a massive asterisk, I've got to say. But just some of the detailing. For 35K, honestly, this is nicely executed, it looks like. Panel gaps, a little bit variable, but we'll see what cars we actually get in Australian spec on the ground, keeping in mind the production line for the Australian cars is completely different. And BYD tell us they can make 1,500 of these Dolphins for Australia every single month. So if they manage to pull that off, it'd be the most successful light car in Australia, pretty much. So we'll see actually what comes to pass there. Build your dreams. Every Dolphin or Atto 2 is going to say build your dreams. Every BYD in Australia is going to say build your dreams. The brand are proud and happy to stand behind it. Now, being a light car, a bit like a Yaris or a Mazda 2, but with a much bigger interior, we have a manual tailgate that opens up to reveal a boot which I'm going to say is probably around 300 litres, but we don't have a figure at this point in time. Beneath the boot floor, you find nothing. No spare wheel, no extra storage. And the wheel arch intrusion is or wheel intrusion I should say, is kind of significant in this boot. But hey, it's a storage space. This car isn't an SUV. It's not meant to be super practical. It's meant to be compact. And at 4 meters in length, you're going to get this into a lot of parking spaces. So that's the outside. Let me know what you think down below. Let's have a look at the interior. All right, so this is the interior of the BYD Atto 2. And I reckon it's absolutely immense. This is a really nicely executed interior for a light car. I mean, it's not super cheap. It's probably about double the price of something like an MG3 with a petrol engine or, like a Kia Picanto. It's an electric car, so it's not going to be as cheap as, a bargain basement petrol vehicle. But compared to something like a Nissan Leaf, for instance, which is a lot more expensive than this car, this absolutely rocks. The materials are no worse than something like a Leaf, and in a lot of cases, they're actually better. Lots of soft texture materials here on the dash, nice steering wheel, nice on the doors, but then when we do move up to the door tops and the dash, you can see how they get this to a lower price point than the Atto 3, which has a lot more soft materials throughout the cabin of the vehicle. Now, check out the colorway. We've got mauve, pink, cream, or dove gray. I kind of think it's almost cool. I can tell you Ponch would freaking love this, but there will be a alternative colorway coming to Australia. They think they will actually want to offer the pink and violet and cream, but there's going to be a sportier looking spec with kind of greys and blues and reds, similar to the Atto 3. That will actually come to Australia for the Atto 2 or the Dolphin as well. Now, it looks like nothing else, I reckon. It's got its own appearance, which I love. BYD haven't just copied anyone with the look of the dashboard. We do have this floating screen here, 12.8 inches. It does have that very, very cool rotating function that we saw on the Atto 3, so you can watch videos when you're stopped in portrait like TikTok, which is an integrated app on the car, but you can navigate in portrait as well, or you can view things in landscape. This has BYD's own operating system. There's not going to be Apple CarPlay or Android Auto for this vehicle. Thankfully though, at first blush, the processing power is clearly there because the animations are super slick. It's all in Chinese, this particular car, so I don't speak Chinese unfortunately, but from what I can see and navigate around, it all works pretty intuitively, which is cool. Go back to home. Well, I say it's intuitive and then I can't actually make it work, but I can't read it. There we go. I see the TikTok icon, navigation. We've got media functions. We've got a charging screen. It's all there. Then we have things like storage beneath the screen, cup holders, wireless charging between the seats, and we also have our gear direction selector up here. So this is where you select drive, reverse, park. That's kind of neatly integrated, I reckon. Leather steering wheel, or maybe it's not leather, we don't know, but it feels pretty natural. Hard plastic hub, but then we got very Tesla-like scroll wheel here for the volume and also for the cruise control. I can see it has lane keep assist, and BYD reckon they're going to get 5 stars on their cars, so we've got all the stuff integrated here to get 5 stars with ANCAP. So compared to other light cars, I reckon the interior is pretty cool. Quality, there's a fair bit of flex in that center console and in the doors, but I guess hey, it would be Australia's cheapest EV, so we can probably forgive it a few of those points. That's the front. Let's check out the back. I have lots of room back here. That's basically as simple as it is. Because the wheelbase on this vehicle is massive, as it's a dedicated EV rather than a converted combustion car, there's lots more room in the interior than something like a Kia Rio or a Toyota Yaris. So if I sit up straight, legroom is fine behind my own driving position. I'm 6 foot. Headroom is just okay. I've got about an inch more headroom. Now, flat floor, we could get someone in the middle if we had to. We don't get a fold-down armrest in this car, and I think we're sitting on vinyl. And because it's not cooled in the front, it could mean that it gets a little bit sweaty, but at least it's not black vinyl, which would be definitely worse. We've got seat back pockets here, which are kind of cool. We've got a cup holder, USB port, but no air vents in the back of this car. That being said, at 4 meters in length, most people that run one of these are probably singles, couples, maybe you've got a doggo back here, something like that. It's probably not going to be family transport, but I think the point is that with this much space, it could be, which is why having air vents would probably have been an extra nice addition. All hard materials back here as well, like the front. So those are my very first impressions of the new BYD Dolphin or BYD Atto 2 that will be launching here in Australia in December 2022. By the time this little hatchback hits the market, its sibling, the Atto 3 midsize or small to midsize SUV, that will have been on the market already for about 6 months. So we're probably going to know a fair bit more about build your dreams by the time we drive an Atto 2. But I'm still very much looking forward to driving it. Long wheelbase, low center of gravity. It should be good, right? But let's find out until we can road test it to make any conclusions like that. On first blush, for about 35 grand drive away as a fully electric vehicle with potentially about 300 Ks of range, it absolutely warrants a look, in my opinion. So let's stay in touch with the Atto 2. You'll find more videos about BYD on the Chasing Cars channel. Before we wrap up today, leave me your comments down below the video. While you're there, make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.